Hello, and welcome to the Greater Statesville Chamber of Commerce 2024 Candidate Podcast. We're given the opportunity to interview and talk to candidates that are running for local, state, and federal office. And I'm pleased to be joined now with John Gallina, who is running for the House seat 84 to be our new state representative. Welcome, John.
That's right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all hosting this and the opportunity to share with the listeners my perspective on some of the needs here in our community.
You're pretty well known in the community, but give us a little bit more about John. Tell us about John.
So, combat wounded veteran, served in Iraq in 2004, 2005. Learned a tremendous amount during that time and experience where we really held the first free elections for an oppressed nation. And that's really where a lot of my viewpoints of elections and politics in general come from. It's a lived experience. It's understanding that when people have a choice, that's where you find freedom. And that's really what I'm running about. I'm married, 3 kids, and all have attended here in public schools in Iredell County. And my wife's a public school teacher and teaches middle school. And so we love calling Iredell County home.
This was not a decision you came to lightly. It's a big commitment. So what inspired you to do this?
I really, over the years, have watched and viewed and seen how many of our politicians, they are just not connected with the community. And as a leader, I believe that a big part of leadership is connecting with people and lifting people up and helping them achieve their dreams and their goals and their aspirations. And for far too long, I've seen that, our politicians go to Raleigh and they're not connected to community and doing the will of the people in our community. Rather, they go to Raleigh and they do the will of folks in Wake County and Mecklenburg County, and it's all in the name of compromise. And I believe that it's time that we have some accountability and that we ultimately do the will of the people here in Iredell County, as we are one of the top producing counties in the state, and we should demand more.
One of the frustrating things I think that I would experience if I were in Raleigh is you're elected to serve from your district. Mm-hmm. That's priority. But at the same time, you're crafting legislation that will affect people in Pasquotank County. How do you balance that? How do you do that?
Well, I think it's a great question and certainly a point well made that you're a representative for the entire state, but you're a voice for the people in Iredell County. And while we like to claim that Iredell County is the best place to call home, it's because of the people in Iredell County. Mm. And I'm certainly not one to say that we should just foster our beliefs on everybody else. It makes for a really tough place to live. But I do believe that there's a lot of things that we have that are right here in Iredell County that can help other counties. But we also have to make sure we're taking care of business here at home. And when we've had a bridge out for multiple years where EMS and first responders can't get to the citizens right here in our community without having to take a 6-mile detour, mm-hmm. There's something wrong when we're focusing on a train track in Cherokee County and writing legislation to support a buffer for that train track. We got to make sure that business is taken care of at home, and we've got to do something to support the other counties that surround us and across the state.
There's got to be a lot of collaboration, too. I mean, obviously, you're running as a Republican, but there are Democrats in Raleigh, too. And in order to get anything done, both sides have to come to a consensus. How would you bridge that gap?
Well, I think, again, just to your earlier question, being able to help support the development of other counties, it takes collaboration on both sides of the fence, right? It's not just collaboration between Republicans and Democrats. It's collaboration within the Republican Party as well. And so ultimately, it's being able to understand the perspective, the needs, and to be able to listen to people on both sides and then be able to work together. And I don't believe that it's always about compromise, rather that sometimes it's about ordering and structuring what the priorities are and developing a long-term plan, not just providing short-term solutions.
What do you think, taking the macro view, What are the most important things facing North Carolina at this point that you'd have to address?
I think there's a number of things that are really pressing for us. Number one is taxation with continued inflation, home prices on the rise with no sight and end. I think we really have to take a look at our schools. And while it's great that we have school choice vouchers, I do believe that we need to take a hard look at regulations, that there's some undue requirements on the public schools when we talk about having equal competition between charter schools and private schools and public schools, but yet the testing requirements that are on public schools are not equal in charter and private schools. Beyond that, when we look at Weathers Creek high school as an example that we're trying to get built, they have to build a queue lane for car rider pickup and drop off, and that queue lane alone, somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 million to build that alone. Well, our charter schools aren't required to have that same. Right, and so there's some undue balance, and the taxpayers still have to pay for it. And then the tax dollars are going to go with the students to those charter schools where they don't have the same requirements, both on testing and on the structure of their buildings. And so I think there's some things there that we really need to take a hard look at. Continuing to support legislation that takes care of our law enforcement and upholds the basic laws here in our community. Immigration as a whole across the country is a significant issue, and it's one as we see right now in the news where even right here in North Carolina, we're in the fight with Texas about protecting our borders. I believe in healthy legal immigration. Certainly our construction industry needs it, as well as the farming industry. We rely on that labor that comes in largely through immigration now. And so, but it needs to be legal, and it needs to be done in a way that's going to benefit our community. And then we also need to take a look at, where we're going as a community, whether it's with casinos or with marijuana. Those are two hot topic issues in legalizing both. We saw in this last session with the General Assembly where they legalized sports betting and horse track racing. Well, it's incrementalism. We're slowly moving that direction. And what we've seen in every state that's legalized gambling, marijuana, what we see in every nation that's legalized it as such, is an increase in poverty, an increase in divorce, an increase in addictions. And we need to take a hard look at that and determine exactly what is the right course for North Carolina, and in particular, what's the right course for Iredell County.
Sure. So fast forward through November, you wake up, you're our newly elected House rep. What's priority number one?
Well, first of all, I would like to say to the listener audience, this is a race that will largely be decided on March 5th during the primary, and so I think it's important for people to not just think about this in the sense of the general election. We need folks to make sure that they're voting in the primary. Early voting starts February 15th, and I think that's the most important message that we can put out. Do not delay to the general election. People need to vote at every opportunity and make certain that their voice is heard. So as far as priority, I think it's really continuing to build the relationships and continuing to expand the planning process to understand what some of the rest of the General Assembly members are facing and what their priorities are, and how we can continue to work together to develop a long-term plan. And again, not just take it in isolation as one issue at a time, but really look at the whole of North Carolina and where we're going. And with the budget continuing to increase year after year, we have to be conscious of how we're spending money. And we've got so many needs across the country, but ultimately I see that the people are hurting. They're hurting. They're stressed because financially, again, because of rising prices, the cost of everything, right? Whether it's food, whether it's fuel, whether it's their housing, all of the basic necessities of life are costing the everyday taxpayer more and more, and our government needs to be taxing less. And I am for a smaller government, a more local government, where the people can be more connected and they can hold those elected officials accountable.
Okay. So in the few minutes we have left, why John Gallina? Why vote for John?
I think it's very simple. As a proven leader, somebody that is a problem solver that doesn't necessarily shy away from issues that face people that are difficult or challenging. I've got a track record of serving people. Beyond that, politics isn't new to me. Most recently, I've been in Washington where I was working with Congressman McHenry's office for the last 3 years to get regulations changed through the Housing and Urban Development with Secretary Fudge. And, ultimately, we've been able to impact over 200,000 veterans through that policy change. Mm-hmm. And so this isn't new. This isn't not something I just walked onto the stage with today and said, hey, we're going to start this. This is something, again, as you said earlier, this decision didn't come lightly. We've been planning this and working towards this end to be able to expand our ability to serve our community, our state, and the great people that we get to call neighbors and friends and family. And so, ultimately, I believe that people want somebody that they can not only believe in, but that they can trust, and somebody that's available and willing to listen to them and hear their needs and go fight for them. And that's what I'm going to do.
Well, we certainly appreciate your willingness to throw your hat into the ring. It's a very auspicious task, and we wish you well in the primary. Thank you, John.
Thank you, William. Appreciate you, and thank you for your service, too.
Thank you.